It is December 27th, 2019, and this is just to specifically document while I remain inside of the vehicle on FERN and G. So this is pursuant to my documentation as to the evidence of the system as it works, where the targeted individual remains surrounded inside of the vehicle that is parked outside at the intersection of FERN and G. And with regard to the elements that are at play, these are universal elements. They are coincided with universal facts. Those universal facts being the persistent stalking conduct of the airplanes that continue to fly about and around, including the different types of aircraft, specifically the helicopter, in addition to the airplanes that take on a commercial appearance, the blue and red. I have documented the plethora of aircrafts that the government is using in order to pursue their stalking and surveillance efforts, and that is pursuant to harassment as well. Today, December 27th, what I specifically want to note is just another instance of the paralleled activity. This is as to the component of harassment, as to the component of invasion of privacy, which is necessary in the implementation of a system of stalking, harassment, and monitoring. And pursuant to that monitoring, that main component with regard to the targeted individual is the seeking after the unlawful search and theft, and the ceaseless perpetual attempt to continue to do that with regard to the targeted individual's communication device. And even as I speak, there is continued focus on this vehicle light activity that is in no way attributed to the position of the sun. It is in no way attributed to any reflection of light by vehicles that are engaged in driving by in a parallel manner. And again, this is added corroboration. Again, those are the aircrafts, as I have stated, that continue to fly about. That speaks directly to the invasion of privacy. It speaks to the continued stalking and surveillance. And again, with what I'm documenting, invasion of privacy is inherent in this system. All I am doing is pointing out the ways in which that invasion of privacy is necessary to accomplish their unlawful goal. Anyway, what I want to directly speak about is I just want to make sure I document the occurrence of the light activity inside of this car. Again, as I have documented on several other occasions, the windows remain substantially covered by blankets. I even have a towel hanging from the mid-partition, the sunroof in the front area of the car. And again, what I observe, much as I have proof of with regard to the third-party facilitator, Starbucks. That's just one example where the system is underway, and the unnatural light activity, which is an element in the ongoing unlawful search of electronic information, which the government unlawfully seeks in its system of stalking and harassing and monitoring the targeted individual. Along those same lines, that paralleled activity is what I am documenting inside of the car, the unnatural activity of light, and the timing in which it occurs. With regard to the third parties who are engaged in directing that light, they are the same third parties that are engaged in the conduct of the light activity that I have direct evidence that occurs inside of Starbucks, that again is not in any way attributed to any position of the sun, based on my location inside of the cafe, based on the time of day, based on the actual location of the sun, based on the activity of the light, based on the concentration of that light, based on the continuous activity of that light. It is something that is consistent with regard to the ongoing search, and that's how that is characterized, because it is a persistent element. Parallel to that, again, as I'm in the vehicle working on my laptop, again, inside of a machine that is parked, the windows are covered. It is presumably unperceivable what I'm doing inside of the car. However, as I turn on my laptop, as I operate my phone, the same floating light that I have documented occurring inside of Starbucks, along the walls, along the ceiling, at an unnatural concentration, not a product of reflected light. In addition to the position inside of this car that it's occurring, it's targeted in the back area of this car, as I am continuing to observe as I engage in real-time documentation. So what I am showing is that this is the system that does follow. It consistently occurs at every location at all moments, at all times. The state that I have just documented again, that is an element in the same system. The state is continuing to engage in stalking and surveillance, invasion of privacy, making itself perceivable at the moment I engage in documentation is not a coincidence. This is pursuant to that same invasion of privacy, which I am stating is inherent. It is necessary in order to even engage in such criminal conduct of stalking, harassment, and monitoring that is at a ceaseless and perpetual rate. What I'm specifically documenting is the fact that upon my movement, upon my turning on my laptop, you have this floating moving light inside of the car where it is behind the blanket, so that is requiring third parties to stand at or locate themselves at a particular angle in order to direct it into the back area of the car. This is something that I am observing day and night. Again, what I'm documenting specifically today is that it occurs as I'm in operation of my communication devices. This is highly relevant. This is elemental in the system that I've outlined and what I've documented with regard to third-party conduct. So those same third parties are engaged in the unintelligent manners in which they engage in the same light activity inside of Starbucks, the consistent use of the enhanced light tactics, as I have termed them in the system. This is a system where, and the reason why I say it's the system as distinct to any individual is because it is not distinct to a specific person. Third parties are surrounding in their vehicles, on foot, on bike, in their residences where they are in relevant position to the targeted individual. And as the airplanes accomplish the same purpose, and that is ensuring that at every angle and at all times the search is ongoing and in no way obstructed. This speaks to the consistent prevalence of the airplanes continuing to fly over based on my activity, the timing that they engage in that. They never cease to be present, but they engage in more perceivable conduct based on my activity. That speaks to the invasion of privacy. That speaks to the very things that I continue to document in third-party facilitating venues. And so this is just another day. It's 2:54 p.m. right now, and actually I am just documenting how the system, how the elements, how the third-party conduct and the state that are cooperatively engaged in the criminal conduct, they are parallel to that which I document out in public. And so, again, with regard to the timing of the conduct, you have the state that is listening to me document its P.O.C. This also speaks to the timing that they take their course of action. The mere repetition of that with regards specifically, for example, the nonverbal communication is irrelevant. The P.O.C. specifically exists, and it has a precise aspect within the system. And so any other repetition of that, which is going to be pursuant to that same invasion of privacy, is irrelevant, and in no way does it contradict or obviate the existence of that P.O.C. It is consistent regardless of where the targeted individual goes. And with regard to the light activity, with regard to the relevant positioning of the third parties that at all times are surrounding the targeted individual, listening to what the targeted individual is doing inside of the car, directing light inside of the car. These are the elements that are at play with regard to the search. And this is exactly parallel to that which I document inside of the venues where I go. The elements remain at all venues. It never, and en route to those venues. So my point is that it is a seamlessly and absolutely feasible system that is in operation at all times, and the presence of the airplanes that are engaged in stalking and surveillance are an added measure of not only to communicate a threat and it speaks to the malice and willfulness of the system, but it also is that which is an assurance that that system is at no time and at no place obstructed. So it is an added assurance that the state is able to engage in that unlawful conduct, and it shows the extreme and outrageous levels to which they sink in order to do so upon the targeted individual's awareness that their rights are being violated at a criminal level. What you have are the third parties. Again, those are the parties that are engaged in the harassment, that are engaged in directing light, that are engaged in circling and remaining around this vehicle that I remain inside of. This is the only way that they're knowledgeable about my activity and directing light into the car pursuant to the search to try to seek out and steal personal electronic information. So like I said, the invasion of privacy is inherent in this system. So it's December 27th, and again, even as I document, that same light activity is at work, so I'm just showing how it is consistent regardless of where the target individual goes, and the system is occurring at a perpetual ceaseless rate. This gives high context to the government's conduct and to the third parties that I continue to document in the concerted P.O.C. It's December 27th. So it is 3:54 p.m. and this is just denoting the light activity outside of 7-Eleven. It was a line of light that was moving left and right as I was walking out of the exit doors. And again, the sun is directly pointed on the 7-Eleven right now. And 7-Eleven, let me know U.S.C is driving in relevant position while I'm engaged in documentation of the P.O.C. That's not a coincidence. Anyway, I'm at Vine and G Street, and again, that is the same paralleled light activity that occurs inside of Starbucks. Starbucks is the preeminent example because I've gotten the most P.O.C. on the part of third parties at that facilitating venue. In addition, third parties are in relevant position in their cars, parked, headlights on. What I really want to focus on is the fact the moment that I got out of the vehicle and closed the door, I audibly listened to an airplane that was maintaining a stationary presence, waiting for me to close the door, and then it began to take flight over the street. And that speaks to the ongoing surveillance, the ongoing invasion of privacy. It was a white airplane. It flew very close to over the houses on my left side as I proceeded to walk toward the 7-Eleven upon exiting the vehicle. And again, a third party engaged in nonverbal communication, engaged in relevant positioning inside of the 7-Eleven as I speak, driving a black Subaru 7 Zebra OA155. Another third party sitting inside of her vehicle. Again, this is pursuant to a system, so there are no coincidences. This is pursuant to the stalking that the state is engaged in, and the third parties that surround the targeted individual are engaged in concerted action. So these are merely samples of the third parties that are engaged in the continuous search and invasion of privacy. This female is sitting inside of her white GLC 300 Mercedes-Benz. She pulled up, sitting inside of her car, holding up her communication device as well. They're aware that I'm documenting the P.O.C. It is in no way a contradiction of that P.O.C. It is confirmation of their listening to me document them. So her license is 8KXU726. They are now exiting their cars. What I am documenting, what the point is that each and every third party, and you could speak to the prevalence of the elements as they follow everywhere that I go. That is the evidence of the very system that I'm documenting. The fact that the state is engaged in stalking via aircraft and through law enforcement who sounded its sirens at the moment I opened the car door. That again removes any coincidences. What I am identifying are third parties that are acting in concert. There is no coincidence when you have the state engaged in stalking conduct. When you are identifying the elements as they remain present at every place that you go. When you have hardcore direct evidence to that end as well. So there is no coincidence. Third parties are engaged in relevant positioning. They exploit the factual circumstances that are at play in order to do so. This is a matter of public corruption, and so under the guise of everyday life, going to the store, buying a drink, getting a book from the library, driving, sitting at the stoplight, those are all of the guises under which this matter of public corruption conceals itself. It is not concealed, though. What I'm identifying are the elements that are at play, and every circumstance under which it is executed on the targeted individual who is unaware. But the unmistakable fact of airplanes flying and sirens sounding upon my activity, upon my movement, and the tracking, stalking, monitoring conduct of third parties who are engaged in unintelligent manners and methods of using the elements of light and using the different ways in which you can satisfy the element of movement of air and engaging in relevant positioning, which is accomplished merely by being in the targeted individual's presence, which is not in and of itself something that a targeted individual will be aware of, especially when you're just walking next to them or sitting in your car, which third parties engage in this criminal conduct in concert with the state assume that they are protected by. What I am identifying are the elements, and again, what I want to focus on prior to completing my purchase at 7-Eleven, where the P.O.C. is underway again by the third-party employees standing behind the register, where I necessarily engage in crossing their path, where sunlight is directed into the glass windows of that store. Again, these are not coincidences. This is the P.O.C. That's enhanced light tactic. The state has been documented as engaged in directing light. And so that was at play upon my entrance into 7-Eleven. Prior to my entrance, though, I listened to an airplane remain stationary above the car, and at the moment I closed the door, it started to fly over FERN, in conformity to the P.O.C. with regard to the airplanes. The stalking is not a question. I'm just pointing out the specific details. The invasion of privacy. You cannot contradict the evidence that I have. I'm just making sure I am diligent enough to point out the details because the details do matter. And again, it's another example as the airplanes fly in the distance and the third parties that surround. This is the way that the system operates at every moment and at all times. And the evidence, the very evidence of the stalking conduct by the state is what substantiates that system. This is the very reason why they engaged in stalking an American citizen in this manner in the first place. So the absence of any coincidence on the part of third parties that surround the targeted individual, that is not a coincidence, that is not happenstance. That is the system in execution. That's exactly how it works in everyday life and at every place. And the arrival of the airplanes, my documentation of the stalking and surveillance and invasion of privacy by the state is the very evidence of that. So I did complete my purchase. And again, there was a light tactic through the unnatural movement of light around where I was walking, a line of light, like it was supposed to be a reflection on the door. It is the same one that I've documented inside of Starbucks. And that is not a natural occurrence. It was not a reflection of light. It's another enhanced light tactic. Just observing and documenting the P.O.C. at the 7-Eleven prior to exiting the car, walking to that 7-Eleven, completing my purchase, and observing the environment around my location where I was using my communication device. This is a focus with regard to the third parties that surround the targeted individual. This is all relevant to the same system. As I listen to the airplanes that are following me en route down the street as I walk on FERN at the moment. I'm sorry, on F Street. F as in Frank. So that is where we're at right now. It's December 27th, and the same stalking conduct is at play. That is the audible sound of airplanes, and when I'm looking straight directly above me, I'm standing in front of 566, or a private residence. I'm looking directly above me. High up in the air is an airplane remaining above me. And what I'm listening to is their hovering aircraft, their engines. They're not engaged in roaring and using the fake audible sounds of the planes flying over. They are flying high above. Listening to me document as I continue to point out, but I just want to point that out. They're flying directly over me. I'm looking at more than one airplane on this residential street. And again, we have a third party at a private residence sitting in their car. This is P.O.C. It's 29346 Robert 1. This is not a coincidence. This is the P.O.C. He is in relevant position while I am engaged in walking past and operation of my communication device while I'm documenting the presence of the airplanes engaged in the same stalking conduct. This is the way that third parties inside of their homes are also able to engage in the P.O.C. They don't have to come outside. They can engage in sitting in their car and obviously being documented as engaged in the P.O.C., but they can remain in relevant positioning behind the walls in their living room as I walk past. Again, I've already shown how the drive-through is surrounded by vehicles, and that is another manner in which the same P.O.C. is underway inside of Starbucks, which is a facilitating venue. I am currently on looking at 616 on approaching San Antonio, and this is just added corroboration. That's fake audio That is fake audio, the same audio that they use. This is an airplane, a commercial one that's blue and red, flying to my left with flashing lights on it after I documented the planes that were directly above my head. Directly above my head. Now, they engage in using this audible sound as they fly very low over the off of FERN, and aware of the fact that I'm documenting them. It's an identical sound, but the reason why I know that that is not fake is they engaged in using that same audible sound. This speaks to the other peculiar instances that I have documented with regard to the state's use of, for example, it is analogous to the fake rain, to the fake moons, to the fake earthquakes. Anyway, they use that audible sound to make the target individual, obviously, who's documenting them, aware of their presence, but that's not the true sound of those airplanes. And it is also noted because I was walking around the park at San Antonio in Florida, and what I noted was the unrealistic sound that was matched with a commercial plane that looked just like that one that just flew over me right now, but it did not match what I was seeing and the sound as I was hearing it. It did not match, and this is how I know that that's an artificially engineered soundtrack that they are matching with the airplanes as they fly over. And again, this is pursuant to the ongoing invasion of privacy which is necessary to this type of system, to this height of corruption, and their own purposes for using fake audible sound of an airplane flying over. I am not required to give an explanation for that, but based on my real-time documentation of what I'm looking at, what I'm observing it as I describe it, the audio of what I heard did not match with what I saw. The airplane was flying much lower. The airplane was flying slower than what it sounded as though it was doing, and this is based on listening to them fly over, I mean, thousands of times by now. The use of that audio sounding, flying as they fly to the left is also deliberate while they listen to me document the presence of airplanes that are flying at a heightened level of elevation above me where I cannot hear them. So for them to follow up immediately after that to engage in making themselves audibly present, so also speaks to the use of such a mechanism. It is something that they do use because they are aware that I am documenting them. And again, that commercial airplane flying over to my left, it also is not commensurate with what I'm looking at, and it sounds identical each and every time they engage in flying over the street. It sounds exactly identical, like it's the same recording of some sound. And I have heard, or I have documented, which I won't go into now. You can refer to my notes with regards to the state's use of volume heightening mechanisms. You can call it a microphone, call it whatever you want, whatever they're using. I have documented instances of that, and this is, I think, analogous to that sort of device that they use in order to make their presence known, pursuant to my documentation, because their presence is already known, when they try to do it surreptitiously and when they're engaging in that which is conspicuous. My focus right now, the fact that they flew over and made themselves audibly obvious, following my documentation of their stalking me, flying directly above my head in aircrafts that were very small to sight because they were so high up, and they actually look like reflections in the sky. They're flashing lights. They're white airplanes that are flying high above. Immediately after I documented that, then you have them fly to my left, sounding identical to that which they always sound like, which I think is a artificially engineered soundtrack as they engage in flying over at a lower elevation. That's not a coincidence that they did that, and so that's relevant to what I'm speaking to. Anyway, it is also relevant because they are engaging in the same search, and so it is something where they are obsessively seeking after electronic information, even to the point to where I continue to get documentation of irrefutable stalking conduct that has been going on for over 365 days now. It is ridiculous, and there is no defense for it, but I take the evidence. That's fine. They are not. They are engaged in futile effort in that regard, but what I want to note is that they also engage in such obvious conduct to that same end, in order for me, hopefully, they're hoping, they're planning, they're plotting and scheming that I would pull out my communication device and start documenting them. And that is the point. That is exactly what Ontario PD did at D Street in San Antonio, where I documented the presence of law enforcement, and it's reasonably foreseeable that I'm going to use my communication device that I always use in order to engage in one form of documentation. And what followed was a flooding of traffic, where it was empty and that was visible in the picture, and it was flooded with traffic seconds later. That is the search. This speaks to the third party that was at his private residence that I documented as I was walking down the street and the planes are flying above my head. And then the commercial plane that flies next to me. They are engaged in a search, and they have to do is engage in relevant positioning in order to do so. It speaks to the drive-through, Starbucks. It speaks to being at this intersection where all they have to do is drive past. That's relevant positioning. It speaks to the state presence where they engage in sounding their sirens. That's nonverbal communication, and all the elements are present where the third parties surround the targeted individual. That's the same search. I am at D Street, D as in dog, in San Antonio. And again, this is to show as proof the planes are still engaged in stalking and surveillance, and the third parties that I document, each and every one, they're merely a sample of that which is occurring at a ceaseless rate. The targeted individual is subject to that search, it's subject to invasion of privacy, and it's subject to being stalked and surveilled at every place and at all times. And specifically what is relevant to that is the fact of the planes, which is a proven fact. That assures that that search and that stalking and surveillance is able to occur at all times and at all places. And that the targeted individual is at no point able to avoid that. That's the added assurance that by default right there, that is proving what is occurring. What I am doing is I am showing the role that third parties play. And the fact of the state's stalking and surveillance, again, I want to reiterate, is the absence of any coincidence on the part of what I identify as the P.O.C. It is not a coincidence that third parties are engaged in identical behavioral patterns where the state is engaged in stalking American citizens via aircraft. And that which is not a matter of just opining and conjecture, it is that I have over a year's worth of evidence to that end. There is no coincidence when that is the case. There is no coincidence when it is occurring where the target individual remains inside of the vehicle. And those same behavioral patterns are at play there. There is no coincidence. And so with regard to my documentation of each third party, that speaks to the same system and the absence of any coincidence by virtue of those universal facts. I'm walking on San Antonio, and I continue to observe the airplanes that are engaged in stalking, engaging and adapting their conduct to that which they listen to me make comments on, speaking to the ongoing invasion of privacy. Again, they're just criminal, not intelligent at all. It's 4:11 p.m. Right. That is the repeated entrance of third parties into the bathroom at Stater Brothers. Just noting December 27th. Very, very busy restroom at the grocery store. Specifically, again, that was used as nonverbal communication as I turned the corner, leaving the aisle, and to come to the restroom, where I came to the restroom and it was filled with third parties. That is deliberate. This is with regard to the positioning, and this is occurring above. I've taken a picture. There's employees above, and also outside of the store and the parking lot, where I have documented them engaged in P.O.C, sitting in their vehicles, headlights on. This is also inextricably linked, as I stated, with regard to the stalking conduct of the aircrafts that I continue to document en route to and from everywhere else that I go. This is 646 HOLT, Stater Brothers grocery store. While being in line, again, another aspect of the same P.O.C where you accomplish the same search is with regard to the employees that keep you standing in line longer. They do that at 7-Eleven, they do that at Walmart, they're doing it here at Stater Brothers. As soon as I get in line, they get out to go to the liquor cabinet or something. It is exploitation of the factual circumstances that are at play. Again, as I sit here in the restroom, this is a third party engaged in relevant positioning that speaks to the seamless manner in which the search is ceaselessly underway. When you're in line and you're forced to wait, whether you're speedily sent through the line or not, it doesn't matter. You're still in relevant position to third parties as they walk past in the different aisles, as you stand in line to make your purchase, as they walk past standing at the ATM, as you turn the corner, walking around, and they engage in nonverbal, alerting that I am moving location. That's what that is pursuant to. The search is underway at every place, and so that's what's relevant with regard to what I'm documenting, in addition to the fact that the bathroom is so popular on December 27th. It's 4:28 p.m. That is an image of the light that is directed into the Stater Brothers that I'm to walk past as I'm exiting the bathroom. What I want to note, my immediate surroundings, this is another example of the seamless way the search is underway. I turn down the aisle. It is reasonably foreseeable based on the fact that I'm constantly stalked and monitored, the aisles that I even walk down. And so, again, there's an absence of coincidences. So every aisle that I do go down where I typically buy the food that I typically purchase, there is third parties in the same aisle, and even if they're not in the same aisle, they can be in the adjacent aisles. Again, the stock on the shelves is no obstacle to their use of the technology that is pursuant to the ongoing search. And so what I'm documenting right now is the use of enhanced light tactics. That was light directed into the doors of the grocery store. It is very relevant to the surrounding circumstances. You're talking about me using my communication device in the bathroom documenting the P.O.C. You're talking about me being inside and documenting it underway at Stater Brothers. You're talking about the fact that I'm documenting airplanes engaged in stalking and surveillance and have been so for over a year. This is all inextricably linked to the same conduct. The same pattern exists as well, and all the elements do remain present. What I'm merely showing is the ease with which the system is in operation at every place, and that same use of artificial means. And so this is very relevant, again, just like at Upland Library, the placement of the sun at the time of the day and the time of the year. This would be very probative with regard to what I'm showing, with regard to what is actually underway, how the sunlight is directly aimed into, it's 4:33 p.m., aimed into the glass doors on the west side of the Stater Brothers. They were aimed directly into the glass doors at 7-Eleven upon my entrance and exit. That is not a coincidence. It's pursuant to the same enhanced light tactics that I have documented the state being engaged in. What I am also showing is the fact that the search is underway and the ways in which it is underway with regard to the behavioral patterns that exist here at Stater Brothers as I document the P.O.C. It's December 27th, 4:34 p.m. Okay, it is 4:37 p.m. I completed my purchase at 4:36 p.m. And I'm at Stater Brothers still, manning it. Register number 7, aisle number 7 specifically. What I want to note is, and this is pursuant to their listening to me document the P.O.C. While he was literally standing ringing up a customer, he picks up the phone and just blows into it. Again, that's not a crime in and of itself. He can get up and start singing in it. The point is that I have identified that as the P.O.C. with regard to nonverbal communication, and I specifically asked him, I said, so you just picked up the phone and just blew in the speaker for no reason? And he was like, yeah, for no purpose at all. What I want to show is that is pursuant, and did it in my presence, wanted me to note it. This is pursuant to the same acts of seeking to duplicate and or contradict as I document the P.O.C. Irrespective of that, it is, I'm just bringing it up because that's another example of the same. It is not a coincidence that he picked up the phone for no reason whatsoever, not communicated absolutely nothing, other than to engage in that which I have documented as P.O.C. in my presence, when it is not an element of the P.O.C. that is underway. The search is always occurring. The stalking is, as I've continued to document, is always underway. But the P.O.C. has a specific, precise identification. And while I was standing in line at that time, not even moving, there was nothing that was relevant to the P.O.C. And that is the point. And duplicating that which I've identified as P.O.C. The reason why I want to document that is because it's relevant, and it's not a coincidence that Manny at aisle number 7 engaged in that conduct of picking up the phone and just blowing into the speaker for no reason and then hanging it up. Based on my identification, I have verbally in my documentation, my real-time documentation, identified that as P.O.C. with regard to nonverbal communication, and it is used as such. I have documented it as such, and that was at Stater Brothers. So that is relevant to that. It's December 27th, and I am at Starbucks again, where I continue to document the P.O.C. leaving the Stater Brothers and approaching the Starbucks. So this is license 1496973, vehicle number 1848, Ontario Police, and vehicle number 1804, license 1431183. standing in the parking lot with the door open. They are engaged in P.O.C. by virtue of their presence with regard to stalking. In addition to the search, which they are also able to undergo, all the elements are present. And again, the planes remain present as well. So this is an African American. Oh, that's the bitch that was with Burnett when they illegally arrested me. So this is symbolic. This is symbolic with regard to her presence, well, with regard to police presence as well. I documented him as well. This is pursuant to the same search that is underway right now. The planes are stalking. The planes remain. They are in pursuit to, what's that bitch's name? Are you Sequoia? You're Sequoia, right? Yeah, that's that bitch. They both lied in court. And they are the ones that illegally arrested me, and the fact that they're here in the Starbucks parking lot, again, where all the elements remain present. You have the relevant positioning, you have their arrival, their presence upon my arrival at the Starbucks, which is relevant with regard to not only harassment but stalking and the search for electronic information. Again, you have the ongoing monitoring and invasion of privacy, so their knowledge of my presence before I get there, the fact that they stole my vehicle where it was unmarked with any information, that's pursuant to the same stalking and harassment conduct, and her presence is symbolic. My calling her a bitch is well called for. They are liars and criminals in uniform. And the fact that she is here, this is the second time that I've ran into her. I also ran into her at a McDonald's off of Rancho Cucamonga in Ontario about 2 months ago as well. That also was not a coincidence. Officer Burnett has been here on more than 2 occasions. That is not a coincidence. That is P.O.C. And it is also symbolic with regard to their presence to the end of communicating a threat and also being in conformity to that which is intended to communicate that they are hostile to my presence, that's specific to Starbucks, and hostile to my documentation, which I continue to document anyway. I want to get it is 4:39 p.m. right now. What I want to see. Hi, Roger. Hi. Can I get your name?
Yes, Barbula.
You're Barbula?
Yes, ma'am.
Barbula? Oh, that's 80520. And he's here standing at the bar talking to Roger. I guess they're engaged in some deep conversation about a drink. Anyway, this is what I want to get with regard to law enforcement presence as I arrive at Starbucks. This is P.O.C. for Starbucks, nothing new, and it is also symbolic presence. So it is 4:42 p.m. Those images and that real-time documentation of Ontario police presence, and specifically Sequoia, which was Officer Burnett's partner on May 4th, when TRACEE called the police and Officer Burnett played on his phone the entirety of the argument that occurred inside of her residence prior to his arrival to the street of Vine and G, where I was parked at that time, when he made an unlawful search of my vehicle, engaged in assault and battery, and then unlawfully arrested me, where I was subject to malicious federal charges and unlawful detention after they failed to give me due process and give me a court date. Again, that is symbolic presence. It is not a coincidence that he is present. It's not a coincidence that Sequoia was present. It's not a coincidence that Burnett has been present on more than one occasion, in addition to law enforcement in general, representing that same agency, representing the same state that is engaged in such stalking conduct that I have documented for over a year. This is relevant to the P.O.C. that I document inside of Sayer Brothers, which is a facilitator of the same criminal conduct. This is all tethered to the same overall P.O.C. with regard to the planes that are engaged in stalking and monitoring. And so the fact that they are present, again, that officer that I documented is in vehicle number 1848. And so that is a brazen act, which is symbolic in and of itself, but pursuant to more than one method of the P.O.C. with regard to law enforcement in particular. That's the stalking surveillance, and with regard to their ongoing search. The third parties continue to surround in the inside of this, well, inside and outside of this establishment, but that's what's relevant. And with regard specifically to all the documentation I have inside of, with regard to Starbucks, and they're listening to me document, so this speaks to the intentionality, the deliberation, the malice behind that, and it will be useful in that regard in the future. But I wanted to make sure that I get the fact, not only law enforcement presence, but the particular officers that are present. Again, there is an absence of any coincidence with that, and apparently something that they would like for me to document, and that's fine, I'll take it. There is no question with regard to the stalking, though, and it's directly tethered to the third-party conduct that I continue to document. It is directly tied to that. There is an absence of any coincidence, and there is an absence of any happenstance or chance. The fact that I'm documenting identical behavioral patterns speaks directly to that, and that is also why the government is engaged in such conduct. It is also the reason why they started engaging in such conduct, because of my documentation of third parties engaged in stalking with their communication devices. That was over a year ago, and that is the P.O.C. with regard to the search. That is the P.O.C. with regard to stalking. And so today is December 27th, and it is 4:46 p.m., and that is upon arrival, again, just placing it into context what I'm documenting, to the same establishment, Starbucks, at San Antonio and HOLT in Ontario, California. And that particular officer, that's the second time that he surfaced, and again, the African-American female, her first name is Sequoia, that was Officer Burnett's partner that morning. Where that ensued outside at Vine and G, which is pursuant to TRACEE Banks, and that P.O.C. that earned away there in that private residence. That's a whole other aspect of my documentation. It's 4:47 p.m. Even though I've already belabored the point, but that is the sound of airplanes flying over this building in concert with Starbucks employees banging. That's nonverbal while I'm in operation of my communication device. They're flying so close that it's vibrating the Starbucks building. Again, that is the same P.O.C. This is fabulous as far as evidence. Like I said, there is no denying what is occurring. What I am documenting is how they are just gratuitously handing it over to me, apparently planning on being silent when it is brought against the state of California and against each and every facilitator, because that's exactly what Stater Brothers is. It also gives credence to everything that I document that is occurring inside of these doors and outside of this establishment. It's highly relevant to that very conduct, the stalking conduct on the part of the state law enforcement and the stalking conduct on the part of the aircraft. That is the direct evidence to this, that which I am documenting with regard to the third parties. Those are the universal facts that are inextricably linked to the third party conduct. So there's an absence of coincidence, like I've said, and they just gave more and more corroboration to that end, the very thing that I continue to speak to and document day in and day out. That was an aircraft flying directly over this establishment, causing the building to vibrate in concert with the Starbucks employee that was banging on the counter while I was in operation of my phone. It's 4:48 p.m. It is 4:58 p.m. December 27th. I'm at Starbucks, 706 West HOLT. So noting the stalking conduct on the planes en route from the vehicle to 7-Eleven, to Stater Brothers, and to Starbucks. The arrival of law enforcement, specifically the officer that was engaged in the May 4th incident with Burnett and his partner Sequoia. This is very relevant. It's instrumental in what I'm documenting inside of Starbucks with regard to the flashing light conduct on the part of third parties, as I am sitting at the table on the south side of the building, and this is pursuant to the ongoing third-party conduct. So they engage in the flashing conduct that I've already documented. Just want to point out more of the facts that are existing on December 27th. You have the airplanes, the law enforcement presence, symbolic presence of officers that I have had specific encounters with, and Roger, specifically the employee who I captured in photo, engaged in conversation with one of the officers who I also have captured here. Irrespective of that, they represent the state that's in compliance with P.O.C, in conformity with P.O.C with regard to stalking and surveillance, and the search, and the third parties that are engaged in enhanced light tactics and harassment through the use of the flashing lights. This is all while they listen to me document the P.O.C. So it's December 27th. I just want to make sure that I note that. It's 4:59 p.m. right now, and so this is occurring in light of everything else that I'm documenting that is occurring today, and in light of everything else that I continue to document. Just make sure I continue to provide the ongoing context. 4:59 p.m. on December 27th. It is 5:24 p.m. Just noting that is the sound of sirens driving around the perimeter of my location while I sit inside of Starbucks. Again, Customary P.O.C. is to have the third parties planted on my left or right or in front of me. Third parties are seated to my right in operation of a communication device. This is particularly the case, especially when they are waiting for me to turn on my laptop. This is pursuant to the ongoing search and monitoring. And again, what I want to know with regard to the elements at play is the sounding of the sirens that are heard around the Starbucks where I sit inside right now at 5:25 p.m. Again, this is in context to the arrival of law enforcement, specifically Burnett's partner Sequoia. There is a whole documented history with regard to that incident in May of 2019. You have the stalking conduct that I documented from the vehicle, inside of the vehicle, from the vehicle to 7-Eleven, to Stater Brothers, to Starbucks. And you have the P.O.C. inside of Stater Brothers. You have the P.O.C. that I thoroughly documented inside of Starbucks. So this is all to be considered, taken into context with regard specifically to the element of the sirens, which is pursuant to the system at large, but that is with regard to the states remaining within the physical perimeter of the physical location of the targeted individual. The targeted the third parties surround the targeted individual, and that is the search in and of itself. It is 5:26 p.m. and I am at Starbucks. It is 9:44 p.m. and I do stand outside at the corner of FERN and G, leaned up against the car. And so what I want to narrate is the experience of being a target individual where the system is underway outdoors. Upon coming out here and leaning on the vehicle, again, all the lights are off. It was actually originally dark, and what I observe is the creeping on of lights. In order to keep light on me, that is the use of light while third parties engage in crossing path relevant positioning, which is accomplished merely by walking past, which I hear the steady murmur of third parties walking around. I hear the steady murmur of car engines, people walking behind my location while the lights are, the street lights are turned on, which were originally off in order to light the specific area where I'm standing. This is replete with helicopter flying over, the sound of car horns at a distance that sound simultaneous with my movement. That car alarm started again as I was focused looking down, and upon my facial gesture, upon my focusing on something. This is the nonverbal communication. This is the indication of the targeted individual's activity. That is the P.O.C. for nonverbal. This is the steady course that occurs outdoors. The use of nonverbal is by any means of nonverbally communicating that which is a consistent monitoring. In addition to that, standing outside of this car, leaned on it while the lights come on, replete with helicopter flying over. The airplanes are visual as well, flying directly over me, not engaged in roaring their engines, using the audio that they always use in flying over conspicuously, but the airplanes that are flying up at a distance, I hear the hovering of their plane engines. This is all occurring while I'm standing outside at FERN and G, and so this is indicative of the ongoing system. The use of the third party's nonverbal communication, which is pursuant to the ceaseless monitoring of the targeted individual, and this is while I'm standing outside leaned against the car. So that is planes and helicopter. That is the use of light, and that is P.O.C. with regard to where I walk on streets. Street lights come on, or they turn off when I'm walking in a parking lot. That is the same P.O.C. The parking lot lights come on, and that is been observed since being in Diamond Bar, specifically La Ramada Place, walking at that corner, and the lights would consistently turn off as I approached that corner. And again, this is the invasion of privacy as a plane begins to fly over while I am in the midst of using my communication device documenting the P.O.C. And I'm looking straight ahead at another plane that is flying directly in front of me at a higher elevation. This is over FERN and G. In addition, there was a helicopter that was flying over. This is just my real-time documentation of the system as I am outdoors. So you have the street lights that are coming on that targeted in my location, the helicopter flying over, and this is while I'm just standing outside. It's 9:47 p.m. right now, and that airplane flying over in sync with my documentation. Again, that's pursuant to their active listening to me documented. It is also confirmation of the continuous stalking and surveillance that the state is engaged in while I remain at this car at FERN and G. The planes that continue to fly over at every other street, again, where I also document the same conformity of P.O.C. This is also to be assessed with regard to specifically today's documentation of the planes flying over as I exit the car, as I go to 7-Eleven, flying over, as I go to Stater Brothers, as I go to Starbucks, and law enforcement there, specific and officers that I have had specific incidents with. None of this is a coincidence. This is my documentation as it occurs outside at FERN and G while the airplanes are making themselves known, which is helpful to the exact thing that I am documenting. The nonverbal, again, outdoors, is the sound of car horns that are at a distance. That simultaneity with which they occur, that is the pattern, and it speaks to the broad, expansive invasion of privacy that the targeted individual experiences with regard to the state system that is at work. The third parties are the ones that are engaged in the communication with each other and with the state that is engaged in actively monitoring and stalking and surveilling the targeted individual. And again, relevant positioning is accomplished by their driving paths, which they continue to do. And relevant positioning, that's crossing path, that's patrolling, that's the third parties that surround the targeted individual at every place that they go. And so this is just my documentation of it at work outdoors. I am again at FERN and G, standing outside, and this is that's the planes confirming the exact thing that I'm documenting, so that's helpful. But again, this is the 9:49 p.m. on December 27th, and what I specifically want to know is, oh, here we go. This is a chorus of planes, so this is helpful. In addition to the planes that are flying at a higher elevation, as I look at them above the houses that I stand in front of, and as I started documenting, now they are flying over audibly. This is P.O.C. They continue to do that every time I start documenting, and that is what they are doing right now. And this is also pursuant to the search, so they are actively seeking it out and conducting an unlawful search as they do that, but they are also doing it pursuant to their listening to me document, the P.O.C. And again, those are just the ones that are audible. What I was looking at specifically narrating are the planes that were flying over, that is flying directly over my location, as I look up planes that are lit up in the sky directly over my location. Okay, it is 9:49 p.m. Just to be clear, this is a third party that is approaching. This is relevant positioning. And that is a helicopter that is flying over. And that is just another narration of the system. Helicopters and airplanes flying over, and the airplanes making themselves audible while I am documenting. That is pursuant to the invasion of privacy as they listen to me document, and then they provide me footage of that real time. That's called a real-time reaction pursuant to their active monitoring, confirmation of the very thing that I'm documenting. It is 9:52 p.m. and that was a helicopter and a third party. So that's the system essentially at work, in addition to the street lights, again, that turned on. It was originally dark, turned on, focused on this very area where I'm standing. Airplanes flying over, basically keeping spot right over me as I look up in the sky, and then the airplanes proceed to audibly fly over as they listen to me document. That's not a coincidence. That is the system that I am documenting. 9:52 p.m. Okay, that image I just took, that is just reflective of the street light that came on, that was originally off when I first came, and it turned on as I stood here in order to place light on me. And I also got the third party, both driving past and the one that was engaged in walking past, that's crossing path at the moment where I'm engaged in operation of my communication device. That is the P.O.C. for the third parties. They always appear as they appear out of nowhere all the time when I engage in using my communication device. That is the stalking surveillance aspect. That is the third party's role with regard to consistently being in relevant position, that is pursuant to that search and theft of electronic information. And again, that's on foot, that's on bicycles, that is in vehicles, that's inside of the residences as well. They are all able to engage in relevant positioning, and it's a seamless manner in which the ongoing theft and of electronic information in the targeted individual's communication device. And so that's what that image captured. I got the third party at the corner crossing, and the vehicle. That's a demonstration of the way that that component of the state system of stalking, harassment, and monitoring is executed. It's 9:54 p.m. So what I want to note about the footage that I just captured with regard to the airplanes that are flying over this intersection at a cyclical rate, and the helicopter, and the third parties that were engaged in relevant positioning by driving past this vehicle. Those third parties, that's what I'm focused on, the people of the state of California, they are acting in concert with that entity that's engaged in stalking, surveillance, and monitoring. And those are the same third parties that I document with regard to the light activity. Those are the third parties that are directing light into the vehicle, that are directing light onto my person, that are flashing, that have flashing lights on their communication devices, that are aiming light in specific areas inside of this car, that is not commensurate to any sun position, that not commensurate with any headlight reflection. It is a product of the ongoing search. It is directly related to that which I document that the state is engaged in. And the third parties, the relevant positioning, as I have termed it, it is accomplished by merely driving past. In addition to their enhanced light tactics of directing light in specific areas, the third parties they act in concert with one another and with the state. So you have third parties that are engaged in the enhanced light tactics by flashing their lights, by turning on their emergency flashers, for example, even their blinkers, in any way that they can get targeted light, any way that they can get light on. In addition to, for example, that example of the street light, just providing any other source of light. Light is elemental in the ongoing search, and so what I'm focused on, what I am demonstrating, is the fact of the third party's participation, and this is the way in which that they are participating with the state, that I am documenting engaged in that stalking and monitoring conduct, and this is the way that it's accomplished. So the simultaneous positioning of third parties in their vehicles driving past while the helicopters and airplanes are engaged in flying over as I'm getting into the car, as I'm putting blankets up. They are familiar with my routine because I am subject to ongoing monitoring and invasion of privacy at all times. This is no coincidence. This is the ongoing search, and this is the way that it is executed. And so that's what I am demonstrating. There is an absence of coincidence where the state is engaged in such egregious levels of stalking and surveillance and obvious blatant conduct. What I am connecting is that third party, the third parties that are engaged in acting in concert with that state, that is providing me clear evidence of their stalking conduct. And I also want to point out that the state's conduct is very relevant with regard to what is occurring in the courts, and this speaks to the presence of the existence of the system, the state that's engaged in this conduct, this bold conduct that I'm documenting, that it is aware that I'm documenting, that is listening to me document it, engaging in real-time reactions such as making themselves heard on my documentation as I do so. It is not a coincidence that they are doing that with regard to what the current status is in the court system. It is December 27th. This is very relevant with everything else that I document, and so I want to make that connection as well. The state's conduct is directly proportionate to that which they presume to be conduct that they are getting away with based on the current state of affairs with regard to the court. The denial, the Court of Appeals denial of the writ petition, the state is aware of that. The police that continue to engage in blatant acts of harassment by showing up with officers that I have had specific instances with, and that is clearly not a coincidence. It is pursuant to the same system of stalking and harassment, and what I am documenting is that it is intentionally so, and it is directly relevant to their knowledge of the current state of affairs in the court system. And so in in the future, this will be relevant with regard to the system that I am documenting. I would be remiss if I did not draw that connection. It is inextricably linked. That is the same system at play in the courts. The state that is engaged in this conduct is acting with impunity because it is convinced that it is getting away with that which I'm documenting. They are concerned with making sure that the information that I have on the state never gets out, which is not going to be the case, but I want to make sure that I draw that connection because that is also relevant to the state's conduct. It's 10:17 p.m. right now. And again, that is another that's the same helicopter. That is a real-time reaction. That is what P.O.C. for their invasion of privacy, for their listening to me, their hostility to my documenting their conduct as well. It is also relevant to ongoing harassment. And what I want to show is that it is a comprehensive illustration of the inevitable connection with regard to not only the third parties that are acting in concert with the state, but the state's knowledge of the current state of affairs in the courts. This is directly relevant to their conduct with regard to the impunity with which they are engaged in criminal acts and their current belief that they are getting away with it and that they will get away with it. This is very relevant with regard to malice, to willfulness, and to the existence of the system. My documentation shows on specific dates, namely you can go up September 12th when I documented the P.O.C., the stalking conduct of the airplanes, on December 17th with the presence of law enforcement inside of the Starbucks on the date that the Court of Appeals denied the writ petition. These are not things that are merely coincidences. These are statements. This is symbolic statements that the same state that's engaged in this conduct is making, and it is parallel to what is occurring in the courts. And so I just want to make that connection because it is very relevant. The state is engaged. That same state is the court. That same state is the one that was seeking to evade serve the process, the same state that is denying lawful relief under the law, and that same state is the one that is engaged in stalking and surveillance and boldly doing so with impunity. So this is very relevant with regard to what I continue to document. It is all connected, and that is my goal and my continuing to document the P.O.C. as of December 27th and the current state of affairs, giving light to the conduct that the state is engaged in to date. It's 10:19 p.m. and I'm at FERN G inside of the vehicle, and that is the helicopter again, and that is the airplanes that are flying over. That is third parties that are engaged in concerted action by getting in relevant position, which is the means by which they engage in a search for electronic information, which is a main component in the system of stalking and harassment and monitoring. Invasion of privacy is inherent in that system. They have to be engaged in that in order to conduct what I am documenting with regard to the direction of light, with regard to my movement and activity inside of a car. There's no other way that you would know what I am doing and engaged in action which is occurring with simultaneity with my action, my movement, my activity, my touching my communication devices, my turning my communication devices on or off. Okay, so it's December 27th and it is 10:20 p.m.